Well, I think we're ready to get started. So today I'm trying to get these monster logs through this sawmill. Unfortunately, if you watched yesterday or the last video, we stuck one up a little bit smaller than this, and it was a fight to get it through there. We had to do some serious surgery to get it down to where it'll fit the wood miser. If you want to learn about that, watch that video. We talk about the throat dimensions and log size and all that stuff in yesterday's video. So today I've had to bust out the chainsaw mill. I have not used this thing in 4 years. We actually used it to build that deck from logs that we dropped on our property, and I really honestly haven't used the Alaskan since then, but this is the Alaskan sawmill's wheelhouse. So we've adjusted it out to maximum reach, which is about 32 inches, and we've got everything set up. What I'm wanting to do is take the top off of this log and remove some of the taper that exists. It's 28 inches on this side and about 38 on that side. So we're going to remove some of that taper, and then I think we're going to switch to the mini mill and take the sides off, and then we should be in better shape to stick it up on the wood miser. I'm sure there's a lot of people out there who have the question, which one's better, a chainsaw mill or a bandsaw mill? We actually did an entire video dedicated to the things that we've learned about the differences between these two guys. If you haven't seen that, give it a watch. It's really insightful. I don't think there's a right answer. I think it depends on what you're doing. As a great example today, we're probably going to be using both sawmills, actually all three. We have 2 different chainsaw mills, and then we've got the bandsaw mill. One of those unique things about the chainsaw mill that is important is the chain. This is what's called a skip tooth or a ripping chain. If you look closely, there's not a cutting tooth every single tooth. There's actually 2 scoring teeth and then 2 cutting teeth, 2 scoring teeth, and then 2 cutting teeth. On top of that, it's actually filed at 10 degrees instead of the typical 30, and that makes this thing cut with the grain like butter. As you can imagine, as these chains start to get longer and longer, this is a 36-inch bar, you have more and more and more teeth to sharpen. So the lesson I learned from chainsaw milling is keep your log clean and keep your chain sharp. Otherwise, you'll spend all day sharpening and very little time cutting. And if you're curious, does a sharp chain make a difference? Absolutely. 2 things: it reduces your fatigue, your workload, and 2, it keeps you from burning up your saw, because it's amazing how hard that saw has to work when you're cutting that much for that long. I was hoping for this project to track down a 42-inch bar, and I guess I'm just impatient. I've been waiting on others who said they had one, and I've never seen it. So we're going to stretch this 36-inch bar to its maximum, and hopefully we will be able to get this job done. I've got 2 logs that I think we're going to need to do this to. I'm hoping we can get those both done today if we just kind of get to work. So we're using a 660 from Steel. This saw is a perfect platform for the chainsaw mill. That's why when you watch the video about chainsaw mills versus bandsaw mills, you'll learn that the cost difference between this guy and that guy isn't as much as you would think, because this saw is not cheap. I'm actually sawmilling these logs up for a friend who had a request. They've been very generous to us, helping us with our house build. They want 5/4 boards and 2.5-inch posts. So by the end of the day, hopefully we've got quite a bit more. This is what we did yesterday, and we want to just get all this stuff done, get it on the trailer, and get it back to them so they can start building their garden beds. I used to use a wooden ladder that I had built for chainsaw milling, but over the years it's kind of dilapidated and deteriorated, and so long it's no longer viable. So I just grabbed this extension ladder piece, and I'm going to be using that today. The difference is it's got a hinge in the middle because this is like a universal ladder. I'm not really sure if it's a great idea or not, but I've got it just kind of pinned in the corners, and we've got a block in the middle to keep it true and straight. So hopefully that's going to work good for us. I've sloped my chainsaw mill downhill ever so slightly to give myself a fighting chance. Other than that, I think we're ready to make some sawdust. that brings back some serious memories. Look at that. Beautiful. A little bit of bar marks where I had to go through that change of height in the ladder there. So now you know why we don't do that. If you want a really beautiful cut like a beam or something, you don't want those saw marks in there. Well, you need to be as consistent and patient as you can, right? Otherwise, beautiful looking cut, very flat sawn looking, some really wide grain and lots of character. All right, time for a snack. I feel like that took a lot longer than it probably should have. And then the next goal is to take a little bit of this taper out and maybe a little bit of this taper out with the mini mill, see how much work that is, and then we're good. Well, that went super good, actually better than expected. I have to say I've never really used the mini mill with the 3-foot bar with the ripping chain, and honestly it's a workhorse. It's just as easy as the Alaskan. The chain I think makes a difference, and then a good strong power head, no problem to knock that guy off. I think I'm learning, and I think what's tragic about these big logs is they seem really attractive. What's like, oh my gosh, there's so much wood in there. And the truth is, look at the amount of taper. Look at all that taper. I think for as someone who has sawmilled quite a bit, I've learned that tapered logs are very deceiving. They're often very big on the butt, and you're like, oh, there's so much wood in there. And the truth is, there's a lot of work and very little wood. You really have to be looking at the small side, and you have to be looking within the small side about what's there, unless you really want wood that looks like that. So I think I'm learning when I see tapered logs run, unless it makes a lot of sense to deal with their kind of personality. All right, so far chainsaw mill number 1 is a win, chainsaw mill number 2 is a win. I'm trying to remind myself that all I'm trying to do is get this thing small enough to throw it up on the wood miser and not screw around all day with the chainsaw mill. But I think we're gonna have to make a cut right here on this side and take just a squeeze off of here, and then I think this honker will actually fit in the sawmill. She's within here. Need to move that side over a little bit, but that'll work. That's it. That's my work for the day. What an amazing day. I'm so glad I got to finally run the chainsaw mills. I've been wanting to do that on a project. That's kind of part of why I took on this project, because I said, you know what? That's gonna be a challenge. That's probably gonna suck a little bit, but it's gonna give me a chance to kind of get back in the saddle and learn those chainsaw mills again. I think what I want to share about this is it's really, really sad how little these logs produce. That doesn't look like too much lumber, but not a little bit. I'm just saying that there should be way, way more lumber than that from a log that's that big. Those logs are just so much work, and they just don't really produce like you would think they would. But I'm really happy with how everything turned out, and I look forward to taking on the rest of this project, getting it wrapped up, and seeing this trailer chock full of beautiful cedar lumber and cedar posts. I hate to say it, but I feel like today I earned a cheeseburger. A big, juicy, cheddar barbecue sauce cheeseburger with some pickles and some mayo and maybe a little bit of like ranchy kind of tangy thing with some sweet potato fries and something really delicious to drink.